Ja, idag så är jag här för att högtidlighålla albanska flaggans dag genom att prata inför albanska studenter, människor som har kommit hit från universitetet i Pristina i Kosovo och andra intresserade. Vi har pratat här om bakgrunden till den nutida situationen i Albanien och Kosovo och också några försök att beskriva vad som kunde göras för en bra utveckling inom det här området.
Hur blir det, tror du?
Ja, det är ju en väldigt öppen fråga, men jag tror ändå på den albanska ungdomen att den kommer så småningom att ta hjälp från det håll man kan få hjälp och utnyttja de nutida möjligheterna. Till exempel har vi genom internet enorma möjligheter till kontakter, till att få inspiration, att få kunskap och så vidare. Och jag tror där alltså att det kommer en kombination av fasthållande vid de egna värdena och en globalisering, att det kommer att kunna förenas. Alltså att man både förenar sin albanska etnicitet och känslan av att tillhöra ett världssamfund. Det är min förhoppning. Men det kan ju naturligtvis också gå dåligt, det blir en svår konflikt. Men jag hoppas verkligen att det kan undvikas. Det viktiga är ju att världssamfundet och Europa är med och stödjer och ser till att de negativa krafterna på Balkan inte får övertaget en gång till. De har fått härja alldeles för mycket, alldeles för länge. Först vid den tid då det Osmanska riket började vackla och nationalismen vuxit sig stark runt om på Balkan, så började det nationella medvetandet vakna hos albanerna på 1870-talet. Och väl det vaknat blev det en kraft att räkna med. Albanska intellektuella verkade för albansk samhörighet oavsett religion eller landsända. Alla var de albaner. I 11:e timmen då främmande arméer knackade på utropades det självständiga Albanien i staden Vlora den 28 november 1912. Observera datumet. Det självständiga Albanien firar alltså idag sin 95-årsdag. Och nu väntar vi på vad som ska hända i Kosovo idag eller inom kort. Inom nutidshistorien vill jag nu peka på några avgörande faktorer i utvecklingen. För det första, stormakternas schackrande som gjorde att den albanska statsbildningen blev amputerad. Stora områden, framförallt Kosovo, hamnade utanför staten Albaniens gränser. Och det innebar en ekonomiskt mycket svag statsbildning, ett förhållande som alltjämt gäller. För det andra, Kosovos regim 1925-1939 byggde på en feodal struktur baserad på hans klan i distriktet Matli, och genom ekonomisk och politisk svaghet var han beroende av Italien som övertog makten 1939. För det tredje, krigsåren 1939 till 1944 medförde italiensk respektive tysk ockupation, ett blodigt partisankrig och en kommunistisk regim som såg till att vara ensam maktinnehavare efter sin seger. För det fjärde, det kommunistiska Albanien präglades av diktatorn Enver Hoxhas ansträngningar att till varje pris behålla makten i egna händer. Detta gällde fram till hans död 1985 med stalinistiska metoder, säkerhetspolis, partiets allmakt i samhällslivet, ideologisk likriktning, fängelser och arbetsläger. Landet var ekonomiskt och kulturellt isolerat med låg levnadsstandard men med fungerande institutioner och en bortsett från politiseringen god skolutbildning. Kulturlivet led emellertid stor skada genom det politiska tyranniet. För det femte, tiden efter 1990 har kännetecknats av ett andligt vakuum i diktaturens spår. Massutvandring och problem med kriminalitet och våld i samhället. I dagsläget syns en viss ljusning. Kampen mot korruptionen bedrivs kraftfullt och som man får hoppas med framgång. Turismen kan också bli en faktor att räkna med för att stärka den svaga albanska ekonomin. Den sjätte punkten. I Kosovo, som alltså hamnade utanför den albanska statens gränser, behandlades albanerna brutalt och hänsynslöst av de serbiska makthavarna. Det gällde både under det serbiska och jugoslaviska kungarikets tid och under de första 20 åren i den jugoslaviska federationen med Josip Broz Tito i ledningen. Efter inrikesminister Rankovics fall 1966 blev läget bättre. Kosovo fick sitt eget universitet, egen flagga och egen konstitution. Men snart efter Titos bortgång började den storserbiska nationalismen göra sig gällande än mera. Den fick sin kulmen i och med Slobodan Milošević maktövertagande. Och vad som sen hände känner vi alla till. Krigshändelserna 1998-99 tillhör ju nutidshistorien. Så slutligen, vad skulle kunna hjälpa det albanska folket i Albanien, i Kosovo och de andra områden som sedan gammalt bebos av albaner för att uppnå ekonomisk, politisk och kulturell trygghet och säkra rätten till en utveckling efter demokratiska principer? Mitt recept är följande. För det första, ett självständigt Kosovo som i framtiden kan ingå i federation med staten Albanien, stött av världssamfundet och framförallt av EU. För det andra, ett målmedvetet arbete på att skapa folkrörelser i Kosovo och i Albanien på gräsrotsnivå, gärna med exempel från till exempel då alltså de svenska folkrörelserna och traditionerna kring folkhögskolan. Vissa sådana rörelser har uppstått, men de måste få villkorslöst stöd från positiva krafter utomlands. För det tredje, EU-stöd till ekonomin i Kosovo med långsiktiga projekt efter att självständigheten blivit ett faktum. För det fjärde, tydliga och juridiskt politiskt entydiga riktlinjer för statsmakten och den kommunala administrationen. Århundraden av misstro måste brytas. Staten är i fiendens händer eller styrs av dem som bara vill uppnå egen vinning. Det enda säkra är din familj och din släkt. Det är konceptet. Va? Och det måste alltså bli förtroende mellan makthavare och medborgare. Det måste utvecklas en väldigt svår men väldigt angelägen uppgift. Förtroendeskapande åtgärder för att minska motsättningarna mellan staterna och folken på Balkan. Men sådana åtgärder får verklig effekt bara när medvetandet om allas lika värde och allas lika rätt slår igenom. Erfarenheten visar emellertid att ekonomiskt samarbete till ömsesidig nytta skapar förtroende. Tyvärr är det hittills mest på maffiasidan som ett sådant gränsöverskridande samarbete har kommit igång på allvar. Och så sista punkten 6. En satsning på den unga albanska generationen skapar kraft och initiativförmåga. En generation som har genomgått stora prövningar. Men som har möjlighet att genomföra det som nämns i de föregående punkterna. Ja, jag tackar er för er uppmärksamhet. Jag har något så när hållit mig inom tidsramen. Och med tanke på dagens betydelse så vill jag utropa Roft dita e flamorit shiptar. Leve albanska flaggans dag.
Daniel Silander. Han kommer att prata om Kosovo och han kommer att prata om demokratisering i Kosovo och hur FN har påverkat demokratisering i landet. Daniel kommer att prata på engelska, så hoppas att alla förstår. Varsågod.
Kosovo needs its independence if it's going to develop further. And that's my point today, to not as a politician, because I'm not a politician, as a researcher, as a political scientist involved in peace and development issues, state or stress that Kosovo has come halfway. First half is done in a soccer game, but second half remains. But in order to continue to develop democratically and economically, I mean, based on political science research, that Kosovo needs its independence, its sovereignty, from Belgrade and from the United Nations mission in Kosovo, UNMIK. I also say that it is a paradox, or a catch-22, in Swedish, moment 22, catch-22, that the United Nations has claimed that a standard before policy, a standard before status policy since 2001, 2002. Meaning that, well, Kosovo needs to develop, show the rest of the world, United Nations, that they have met the standards set out by the international community, and if they do, they might be independent. They improve their chances to become independent. But I mean that it is a paradox in the policy, meaning that in order to meet the standards, in order to become the mature democracy, the dynamic, consolidated democracy, and in order to have a free, dynamic, competing market economy, Kosovo needs its independence. It's time, bottom line, for the United Nations mission in Kosovo to leave the responsibility to the Kosovo people and the Kosovo politicians in order to make sure that they can obtain the standards that the United Nations set out many, many years ago. Kosovo today, and the Balkans today, meets a new Europe, of course. There have been so many changes in Europe over the last 20, 25, 30 years. For you that are much younger than I am, might not know the dramatic changes that have happened in Europe. And this is very important to realize, because this is what the standards that the countries in the Balkans and Kosovo, as an upcoming sovereign state, I would say, needs to adapt to. In 2004, we had an enlargement of 10 new member states, which meant a quite big bang in European politics. It meant that the European Union went from being a very limited Western European Union to become a more all-round, all-inclusive European Union, in the sense that the European Union and its member states accepted to adopt new member states. So during the 1990s, many of the former communist states went from being satellite states within the Soviet Union camp to become sovereign states, leaving communists behind, leaving very much a controlled, regulated economy behind, facing the pressure from the Western states, very much pictured through the European Union, to adopt the European Union norms and values. So the last enlargement was in 2007, including 2 states geographically located in the Balkans, Southeast Europe, or whatever we call it. And that was Bulgaria and Romania, which are 2 member states of the European Union today. This enlargement from 2004, including 10 new states in the Central European states, in 2007, including 2 states from the Southeastern Europe, has led to a lot of institutional changes within the European Union, of course. There has been a lot of tools, programs, financial assistance, technological program to help these states out, to leave communists behind, to leave planned economic structures behind, and to adopt the European Union standards. The European Union standards was at first proclaimed in Copenhagen, at the European Council meeting in Copenhagen in 1993, saying that in order to become a European Union member state, you need to apply to certain standards. Number 1 was free and fair elections, meaning democracy. You have to be democratic oriented. Number 2 was market economy. You have to be ready for the European Union market, the single European market, dealing with the competition from French companies, Swedish companies, British companies, etc., to be able to survive on a single European market. And the third criteria was the rule of law, judicial reforms, and an administrative capacity to include the EC law, the law system of the European Union, but also to adopt to other processes that comes with membership or getting closer to a membership of the European Union. So what we can say today is that the European Union, by its enlargement towards Eastern Europe and Southeast Eastern Europe, has showed Europeans and the world that it has become a norm community. Norm meaning what I said, the Copenhagen criteria. To become a member of the family of European Union individuals or member states, you need to show the European Union, you need to show Brussels and Strasbourg that you have adjusted your political system, your economic system, and your social system to the standards that the European Union requires you to do. And when Brussels, Strasbourg say, well done, you have done your job, your homework, then you can become a full member state. And that happened to Bulgaria and Romania in 2007. This is what we call an asymmetrical relation, of course. The European Union being the powerful actor, and the member states, and the non-member state that wants to become member states being the dependent actors. Of course, of course, of course. This is how international politics is. That's why it's so unfair that we still discuss the sovereignty or not of Kosovo, because this is up to very much China, Russia, the US, the UK, and France, the permanent member states of the Security Council. If we look at the development of the North community, we could say, well, the former communist states in Eastern Europe, they had become European Union member states, but what had really happened there? Well, we could see, based on research, again, I'm not a politician, based on indicators and data produced by political scientists primarily, you can look at all the free and fair elections in these new European Union member states or not. That was a demand from the European Union side. So if they are part of the European Union, they need to have a free and fair election, of course. Or their second indicator, a dynamic, free, organized civil society that are not state-controlled or governmental controlled, that could, as the former speaker talked about, that could provide social movements in the society where interests are articulated and aggregated and could put pressure on the politicians. And the third indicator, is there an independent judicial system or not? Or is it corrupt, politically controlled, regulated, etc.? These three parameters, 1 to 2.5, that means, in the next slide I'm going to show you, that we have a free society, a free democracy. 2.5 to 5.5 means it's partly free. There needs to see improvements, but it is democratic patterns going on in these countries. And the unfree societies, 5.5 to 7, that are still the authoritarian systems that we are quite used to see in former Eastern Europe during the Cold War era. Three indicators are the free and fair elections. Well, if you look at the new EU member states from 2004, the new EU member states, and I just take a sample of states, you can see in the parameter to the right, 2006, 2.00, Czech Republic, the first country. Second country, Estonia, 1.50, and then we go on 1.25, 1.75, 75, 75, 1.25 for Slovakia, Slovenia, 1.50. All of these new member states of the European Union since 2004 shows, based on research on democratization, democratic development, that they are part of free societies. There are free and fair elections in all these countries. Meaning that the Western world, politicians, and Western scholars of political science say that these states have adjusted their political system to the standards promoted by the European Union. If we look at this, the comparison to the Balkan states, most of the states that are not part of the European Union, but they are looking for a European Union membership, including Kosovo that needs to meet the standards of the European Union to be accepted as a legitimate European state in the future, it's not too bad. Albania, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Croatia, Macedonia, Romania, Serbia, Montenegro, and Kosovo underlined. 2006, right parameter, 3.50. It's above 1 to 2.5. It's between 2.5 and 5.5, which was quite free, not fully free, but partly free state. So there are partly free and fair elections in these states. Kosovo as well, 4.75, meaning that the scholars on democratization and think tanks in the Western world believes that Kosovo today do have elections, of course, parliamentary elections, presidential elections, and they say they are good, they are partly free, it's part of what they want to see as an ingredient, a core ingredient in a democracy. It could be better, but it could be much, much worse. 4.75 is a little bit behind the other Balkan states, but my point of view is that the big difference between these countries is that Kosovo is not a sovereign state. In order for Kosovo to improve 4.75 to become one of the other member states and the score they have, they need their sovereignty, and I will come back to that later on. Social movements, an organization beyond the political system that brings citizens together, raise issues, interest, organize, mobilize, demonstrate, from a music band to a chess club to human rights organizations to environmental discussions in trade unions, etc. You can see the same thing. 1 to 2.5, then you have a very good democracy, you have a very free, independent civil society that is very good in a democracy. You need their expertise, you need their lobbyism on politicians, you need their checks and balance of the politicians. Do they do what they say they will do or not? An organized interest beyond the political system. You can see most of them, all of them actually, are between 1 to 2.5. They do have all strong patterns of a free, independent civil society that is not state governmental controlled, legal-wise or financial-wise. This should be compared to Belarus today, for instance, but at 7.0 on a scale of 1 to 7 of a free and independent civil society. That means that research in political science says that there are no such thing as an independent civil society in Belarus today, just as an example. If you look at the Balkans, indicated 2 again, civil society, again, it is quite good. You don't need to be a citizen of Poland to be part of a dynamic free society where you can express your interests and views through trade unions, interest organizations or other political associations, etc. It's partly free. All of them except Romania is over 2.5. That means they're not extremely well, but it's partly free civil societies. It is quite good chances to organize interest beyond the political system and raise your concerns without being a politician. Kosovo, 4.25. Also between 2.5 and 5.5. There are a growing civil society, or at least there are civil society. It's hard to say growing since we do not have statistics before 2004. What is the problem with the United Nations mission in Kosovo today? It was, as we all know, it was absolutely necessary, that I would say absolutely necessary to stop the ethnic cleansing, the refugee camps, the displaced persons of 1998 and 1999. Unfortunately, NATO did it. It was a mission for the United Nations to do, but since they were divided in the Security Council, NATO did it, which is, I think, very good to stop the human catastrophe that happened. But today, since 1999, we are 8 years beyond 1999, 7, 8 years ago. Now, I mean, it's time to leave the future of Kosovo in the hands of the Kosovo Albanians. Time will not heal, thank you very much, I will have more help from you now, heal the memories, the bad memories from the war, if Kosovo will not get their independence. That means that Kosovo Albanians, in my point of view, will always look at Belgrade and Serbians as a potential enemy or as a real enemy, as long as the sovereignty is not consolidated, decided for and consolidated by the United Nations. There is a risk today, as we can see in Kosovo, my point of view again, I look forward to your questions later on, that the liberator of Kosovo becomes the enemy of Kosovo. People in Kosovo, the politicians and the population at large, wants to see an independent Kosovo. And that means the more we wait for each and every year that passes by, there is a risk, and we see that in Pristina today, I would say, that the United Nations and other international observers, troops, politicians, lawmakers, advisors, experts, etc., becomes the enemy. Because they were there not to create a United Nations state. They were there to liberate Kosovo Albanians from the oppression of the Serbians. And that means that there must be an end date. And the United Nations do not want to be involved anymore. So there is a great risk of becoming the oppressor or the conqueror instead of the liberator. Today, my point of view again is that the domestic political debate, the domestic political agenda in Kosovo is very much undermined by the international talks that are going on. Many politicians in Kosovo, the political parties in Kosovo, are very concerned about the yes or no on the sovereignty issue, the status issue, that they forget that the real responsibility in the future is to develop Kosovo politically and economically. So political leaders focus too much on the independence issue, since it's the crucial issue for Kosovo Albanians. And this means that the political culture in Kosovo continues to be quite immature. Not having a great historical legacy of democracy in Kosovo, in Serbia-Montenegro, in former Yugoslavia, means that it is an immature political culture. Meaning, for instance, that the political attitudes, pro-democratic attitudes, needs to be improved. The social movements needs to be more developed. The relation between politicians and people needs to be tighter. The checks and balances within the political system needs to be much, much improved and more efficient, etc. And you can see that when you look at the political parties compared to other former Western European parties, that there are many things that needs to be improved in Kosovo to become a dynamic, consolidated, stable democracy. And if there is no stressed sovereignty, decided sovereignty, there is, of course, the risk that the pro-democratic forces in Kosovo will be questioned, challenged by the not so much pro-democratic forces, opinions in Kosovo. And we could see a radicalization of politics in Kosovo, demanding its sovereignty instead of being tired of a wait-and-see policy, being tired of, well, we will decide the future status of Kosovo, but you have to wait until December 10th, May 15th, 2008, 2007, 2008. Sooner or later, people, groups, forces will be tired of a wait-and-see policy, and perhaps undermining the great job that the pro-democratic force in Kosovo has done over the last years. And the fourth criteria is democratization in the way that we talk about a fully consolidated, stable democracy needs a dynamic and healthy market economy. And there are a lot of problems with the Kosovo Albanian economy, as we all know. And I say that many of these problems that Kosovo sees in the economic sector also comes with the undecided status of Kosovo. I think that in order to get a fully dynamic market economy in Kosovo, it will take a lot of efforts, power, strength, but it can only become a reality with a sovereign Kosovo. And a few things I would point here is there are the possibilities of getting loans and credits from the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, etc. The legal status of giving loans, major loans, to actors, entities in the world is that you need to be a state. That means undecided status of Kosovo means that Kosovo is not granted major loans from the International Monetary Fund or World Bank, which any other state in the world that had this interest and proclaimed interest as Kosovo has in the world would have received. So this is only due to the inability or inability to decide the future of Kosovo. If they decided sovereign Kosovo, then the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank would be there immediately with the needed economic resources, loans, etc., foreign aid, etc. The other undermining factor of a prosperous economy that would provide a prosperous democracy, in my point of view, is that who wants to invest in Kosovo today? Kosovo Albanians in the world, in Europe, I would be very afraid of investing money if I was a rich Kosovo Albanian to Kosovo, because perhaps Russia continues to say no in the Security Council. Perhaps China supports Russia and say no in the Security Council. And perhaps European Union is divided in their opinion and became a lame duck. And perhaps US is more interested in the Middle East and the peace process going on again there, that they leave Kosovo behind. Then it could mean that Kosovo becomes, in one way or the other, under the superior authority of Belgrade again. And I would say, who wants to invest just being afraid, just having this in mind that this could happen? No one, I would say. And even if you're an international, multinational corporation, company today, it's quite risky to settle your businesses in Kosovo with not knowing who is going to control, rule, regulate Kosovo in the future. I could go and ask Ingvar Kamprad, perhaps, if IKEA wants to get established in Pristina. I think he would say, well, I wait and see. You can ask Volvo. They would say, well, we wait and see. Everyone waits and see until the status is decided. That's a problem. And the third indicator undermining for foreign investments, which are very important for a prosperous market economy, which is a precondition to a more mature democracy in Kosovo, is the young population in Kosovo. They are politically marginalized in the way that, well, they belong to Europe, perhaps, that they do not belong to a state, and they do not belong to a state that are part of the European Union. They are raised in an environment where hostility, criminal activities has gone on. They are raised in an environment with Belgrade in their mind all the time. And above this political marginalization in Kosovo, as a non-state, and in Europe as a non-EU member state, they also have this social and economic pressure on them. Being unemployed when you leave high school. Trying to get a higher degree, but being unemployed perhaps when you leave a higher degree. The unemployment rate, as you all know, is way, way, way too high. It's not even possible to compare with other European states, I would say. So that is, again, based on 50 years of research on democratization within social sciences, especially in political science, say that there are no mature democratic development beyond what we can see today in Kosovo without the precondition of stateness. Decide the stateness of Kosovo, decide a sovereign Kosovo, then there are at least a chance to grow, elaborate, develop a better, improved democracy and market economy. It's in the interest, of course, of Kosovo to become independent. As I said, it's the only chance, I would say, to continue the efforts that have gone on for a few years to improve the democracy and the market economy and be part of the European Union. But I think the European Union should realize that it's crucial for the European Union stability, the ongoing European integration process, the norm community that I started to talk about with the enlargement of 2004, to also realize that Kosovo needs its sovereignty to become a more stabilized region, to become an independent, sovereign market economy and democracy. Because the strategy of the European Union is the democratic peace theory, the democratic peace strategy, that we set up conditions to become members of the European Union. And all those states that meet the standards will, if they want to, become European Union member states. This is based on the democratic peace theory that there is a belief, a strong belief, I would say, that goes back to Immanuel Kant's philosophical ideas of the late 18th century, that democracies are less likely to start war against each other, due to that democracies do have checks and balances in their political systems. They are more transparent for other states to look into and see what is going on in the political system. There is not one political leader that can suddenly use propaganda of mass mobilization, naturalistic approaches, aggressive, missionary foreign policies against others. We can look into democracies and see what's going on and be prepared for eventual changes in that foreign policy. And democracies are also based on the people's will. And people in general do not like war. No one wants to send his, her daughter or son to a war if it's not a good cause. In order to convince people that this is a good cause to send your son to Iraq or your daughter to Iraq, then you need to be very convincing and have your facts with you. So, final sentence is, it is in the European Union's great interest to see a Kosovo that develops democratically and economically. Otherwise, of course, it will destabilize the Balkans again, and it will destabilize the European integration process that we have seen and that have been so successful, including the Big Bang 10 member states of 2004, including Bulgaria and Romania in 2007. So I fear, I don't believe this is going to happen, but my fear is that the European Union will do a lot of soft talk and be divided in interest, and then this will be a discussion between Russia, China and the US, and I think the US in this sense would need the strong support from the European Union side. I do believe in a sovereign Kosovo, but it's and I think it will come now, but it's already too late. That's why we see now the liberator perhaps becoming the enemy in Kosovo. I promise to stop there, otherwise I just go on and go on and go on.
We will take the questions after the speech of the principal of university in Peja, Dr. Edmond Beciri. He will talk about the university in Kosovo, and he will give a brief information for those who wants to listen.
We have made connections and with the deans of the faculties and with responsible of international students here, administration, the director of administration, and they are ready to collaborate with us. So this is our offer to you from both universities in Pristina and in Peja, that you can spend a part of studies in of your studies in your mostly in your home country. So because you are mostly coming from Kosovo, and transfer credits from there to Växjö and vice versa. So this university, European Vision University, will establish bachelor and master degrees that are with the same timetable as in Växjö University, and also University of Pristina offers summer university that is ECTS oriented. So during summer university you can also participate in many courses and take credits there and transfer here. This is, I think, a big opportunity for you. We know that some from you are Albanian speaking, you have native Albanian speaking, but you don't have academic skills in writing, so we will offer to all of you also courses in academic writing in Albanian. So this will be added in the offer. This was from our part, and also I'm very glad, and our delegation is very glad that we had a chance to participate in this ceremony on the Flags Day of Albanians.